Hey guys, it's Brandon. Gonna do another 15-minute commentary game here. So we've got another D4 game. And let's see if we get a Nimzo-Indian again or something else. Looks like we're gonna get another Nimzo-Indian. So this is a, okay, Queen C2 is the classical play. C5 here, hitting the C4 pawn, because the queen's no longer defending the D4 pawn. The queen's no longer defending the D4 pawn. So the best move in this position is to take. And then knight f3, followed by queen d7, queen b6 to force e3 and prevent the bishop from coming out. Yeah, that's a possibility also. I'm just going to develop sensibly. Castle. Bishop e2. Usually the bishop is more aggressively placed on d3. Usually. I think at this point I'm going to play c takes d and retreat my bishop back if he plays a3. Yeah, I'll chop this knight. Queen b6, but then bishop e3 seems fine. So what about b6, bishop f3? So that doesn't really work. We could play takes, check, queen takes, knight e4, queen c2, d5. That's an idea. I could play d5 immediately to try to give him an isolated queen's pawn. Yeah, how about that? I'll play d5. The idea is if d takes c, then knight takes, and I'll be playing against this isolated d pawn. And if castles, then maybe just played c5. Interesting. e5. e5 takes, doesn't do much. Takes, queen takes, knight e4. What about just knight e4 right now? Yeah, that seems good. What about just knight e4? Still exploiting the pin, and that would force knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, bishop comes back and gets back into the game, maybe via c7. So I get the plus of his weak pawn structure. Ah, why did chess base just open? That's weird. Sorry about that. I get the, yeah. And now my idea is bishop to a5. And bring the bishop back to c7. And he has some weak pawns. He has some weak pawns, and I don't have to give up the bishop pair. What about... do still have a bit of a bad bishop. I'm going to just play queen c7, and maybe I can play for something like queen c6 followed by b4, or just excuse me, b6 and just b6, or maybe just b6 right away. b6, pawn takes, bishop takes. Both my bishops are sort of biting on concrete. That's one problem. And I do have to find something for my light square bishop to do. In the meanwhile, he may be able to organize some kind of attack. His bishops are definitely better than mine at the moment. But maybe e5? Okay, this might involve the idea bishop d1, c2, put the battery on h7. I could play e5, ed, queen takes c5. I don't like the looks of that. But I do have to figure out something for my queen to be doing. I'm going to play with e5 because if he takes the e pawn, it'll give me these c pawns. I'll have this isolated d pawn, but he'll also have these weak c pawns on the c file. So, and one idea could be to play g6 and bishop e5. That could be one way to get rid of one of his dangerous bishops. Okay, if he takes queen here and then rook, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to take and play g6, f3. I don't know. And I'm going to play g6, threatening bishop f5. Do have to be careful of my dark squares. But if worst comes to worst, I can play something like f5 and guard the g7 square laterally in the case of something like bishop h6. This f3 move, I'm not sure. Maybe he's just trying to control the e4 square. But I don't know. I'm not particularly threatening to go to the e4 square. I do need to get my dark square bishop doing something. So I forgot my bishop was covering. Okay, so this is losing an exchange after bishop to f5, right? There's no way for him to stop from losing the exchange. There's no block, there's none of that. So he just missed the threat of bishop to f5. Okay, I do like that this bishop is controlling the square e8. That's one thing it is doing. Maybe it's an idea for me to play b6, if takes, then pawn takes, keeping the bishop in control and trying to grab the e file. My only concern would be something with on the dark squares versus my king. He wants to grab a pawn for it, but he can't. Well, he can. Yeah, but I'll just defend with the rook. So since the queen is leading the charge here, I didn't want to play b6 because of just c6 with he gets a passed pawn. So I'm up the exchange here. Maybe I can just play queen c6, trying to trade queens, followed by b6 if he declines the trade. The problem with this plan of b6 and then pawn takes is that the bishop is sort of forced to stay on this diagonal. So that's one downside of the plan. I'd really like to trade off dark square bishops here. That would be sort of a dream position. So, okay, queen is putting pressure on the pawn. So I can play rook e8 as a start. And then I can defend the pawn. But I think this is fine for now. Just defending the pawn. He has now bishop to b5, but in that circumstance, I think I can play queen e6 was my idea here. Queen e6 should be fine. Maybe it's an idea for me to maneuver this bishop back out now. This bishop on a5, just get it out back onto this sort of diagonal. Yeah, unfortunately his bishop now controls. Yeah, he's attacking my bishop. I can attack his bishop or just get mine out of there. But I mean, defend my bishop or retreat it. He does have sort of an annoying move, c6, with a discovered attack on my rook. I could play queen f5, hitting his rook. I have a queen check here, which could pick up this bishop at some point, maybe. But I think it's best if I just get this bishop out of dodge. Okay, he takes a pawn. But I think if he takes the pawn, I should have rook to a8, queen check, followed by rook to a8, and then the queen has to move, and then I grab the bishop. Okay, he gets a couple pawns for the piece, but I'm already up in exchange, and his king is weak. So I just have to be a little careful here. Okay. This is an opportunity for us to swap bishops. Or I could just play a bishop move, hoping he doesn't go for it. Like bishop h6 with the idea of bishop g7, and then try to sneak in this fork. It's worth a shot. I don't think there's anything objectively wrong with hanging on to this bishop. Yeah, I'll just bring the bishop back. He can trade queens to try to prevent this, but I'm threatening queen e3 check. Okay, see the c6 move, queen e3 check, and then picks up the bishop. So I don't think there's anything wrong with hanging on. I think bishop g7, putting pressure on d4 at some point could be good for me. So he does have to pay attention. I mean, he can play. He can play. He spotted that tactic, I guess. So now the rook's covering e3. Is there anything else for me to be doing here? I'm going to try to chase this bishop off of this diagonal. Because I don't like the fact that it's covering e8. I'd like to stick a rook there, in other words. So, bishop a4, I think b5, en passant, rook takes, queen takes is fine. No, that doesn't work because the rook is hanging here at the end of that line. En passant. Yeah. Alright, so he just voluntarily left that diagonal, which is nice. Because I can put pressure on the bishop. I think he has to defend with his king. Because if he plays rook to b2, I have this check picking up the bishop again. I mean, I guess he could move the bishop as well. He doesn't have to. Yeah, I think that was correct. So how to make some progress from here? I could play bishop g7, just putting pressure on the g-pawn. The question is how to follow up that pressure. I kind of actually like the bishop on this diagonal. It's controlling a lot of squares in his position, a lot of dark squares. I could try to sneak in on the dark squares, but what about this b5 plan again? b5 takes en passant. Does give him a pass pawn, so b4. If he pushes, I just take it. So b5 takes en passant. Rook takes. Seems okay. So let's just break open the position. I have a material advantage. I'm up in exchange, and he doesn't even have a pawn for it. So this is the plan I'm going with. And if he takes en passant, I am just going to... Well, I did give him a passed pawn. I forgot he doesn't have to do anything. That is, of course, one option for him, just not to do anything. And just try to play with this passed pawn. Alright, what's going on here? What can I do? If you play something like, I don't know, I'm just gonna put pressure on this pawn. So his queen is getting tied down a little bit. Actually, I think I'm threatening just to take the pawn, because if queen takes check, king back, the bishop is actually covering e8, so that wouldn't be mate, but it's close. So he's just defending the pawn. Okay, it's time for me to break through on the e-file, I think. I'm going to double up rooks on the e-file. His bishop is a bit of a dead piece right now. It has nowhere to go because the queen, the rook, and the king and the pawn are stopping it from really going anywhere. So I'm going to try and just double rooks on the e-file and break through that way. Okay, the queen is blockading the passed pawn at the moment, but I don't want to keep it there in the long run, but for now it's okay because I'm just trying to double. Yeah, exchanges are good for me here. The more exchanges, the better, because I'm just going to come into an endgame where I have a rook versus a bishop. So I think he has to trade. If he moves the rook away, then I get 2 rooks for queen and bishop. So that's a fair trade. Also, the d4 pawn is hanging now. So the d4 pawn has to be defended somehow. I could maybe... okay, now it's falling with check.
Check.
d4 falls. Now the game, I don't think there's any real hope to hold on to this position any longer. Because I'm getting 2 pawns for the check here, because now the c pawn is falling too. Wow, that looks dangerous. I feel like I must have some kind of mate here. With queen c6, king h3.
Check.
Let's see if I can find something. I could go here. What about rook e5, threatening rook e5, threatening rook h5. He'll have to play f3, I think, to defend. f3 to defend. f3 to defend the rook h5 threat. He's getting pretty low on time too. The point is after f3, the bishop is watching h5. So, yeah, but
check.
Gets out of that skewer. Now I can just play this. Maybe I've got some mate here. He also only has 28 seconds. So he's gotta move a little faster here. I'm gonna win this game on time. What?
Check.
This just loses the queen. Oh, he's saying good game. So, alright, so that game is coming to an end now. Do I have a quick mate in 2 or something? I don't see one.
Check. Game over.
Maybe that rook on the back rank was mate. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that game, and we'll see you next time. So yeah, maybe I'll just recap first. Just to recap, I just got this exchange in, and then just played to open the position and got my bishop back. I just played here to open the position up. He didn't do it, but it's really hard. He just has no real coordination amongst his pieces, and just sort of crashed through. Yeah, this was the end of the game for him.
Check.
I thought in the long run f3 was the only move that really. I guess that defense could have worked if instead of taking the pawn he played like queen here to defend the bishop. But I may have had some tactics there anyway. Not sure. So hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.